Today we're getting into the fifth way to make communication our greatest asset, which is to amplify our awareness so that we can increase our choice of how we respond to others in the face of a difficult conversation or to ourselves. And we want to talk a little bit about some philosophical shifts that happened for us in our lives around realizing that we had more choice in our communication style or approach, and also maybe some habitual moments where we realized there was a little space to be aware of that choice differentials. And for me, I'll just start by saying I grew up really being very, I'm very much a person who kind of like pushes for what I want in my life. And yet there was, which I've talked about in the series before, but I also had this belief or these parts that were kind of lined up to like keep me quiet in terms of real expressing dislike or discomfort or anger, especially. I didn't want to rock the boat. I had not a traumatic household, but my sister and my parents had a contentious thing going on when I was a younger person, a teenager, and it was just like safer to not rock the boat in that way. And then it really shifted for me. There were a couple like moments where I had the opportunity to either not at all pursue what I wanted or overcome that barrier of belief. And a few of those moments, and then lots of therapeutic experiences and community healings and all this stuff, opened those doors up further. But like a couple big moments where I was challenged to be like, are you worth it? Are you worth getting out of your discomfort zone and expressing what it is that you want? And now I'm kind of on the other side of that, where I'm like, I have the other thing that happens is that Laura and I were talking about before was that sometimes I feel like I don't have as much choice over what I'm saying because it comes out so quickly, because now I'm so ready to put my desires on the table.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about my habitual shift after, if you want to share some of your.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And just to offer a quick reflection, those two different ways that change can happen. There's something extreme going on externally and you're rising to the challenge. Kind of there's like an external challenge, right? That's creating an internal shift versus the safe healing, whether it's in a one-on-one setting or community setting. Those are like the two ways that we learn and change, in response to something that's out of our control, or being in a super controlled, safe environment where we can explore in a conscious and directed way. And in Wake the Talk Up, we're creating that safe zone for conscious direction of change, so that when shit does get crazy and we do have that challenge, we have more access to basically different options and how to show up. So yeah, my experience around this is, for much of my life, I don't think it even occurred to me that I might be able to have a choice in how I speak and what I say. In fact, if you asked me like at the end of a conversation, or maybe even after the end of a sentence, like, what did you just say? I don't know that I'd be able to reflect it back. So I didn't have the retroactive recall or the proactive presence either way to really be with, like, what do I want and how do I want to communicate it? And what that looked like in particularly in challenging conversations was just immediate like reactivity, or even not in challenging conversations, and like intellectually stimulating conversations, just continuing to contribute, react, and not really taking in all that other people were bringing into the conversation. I missed a lot from myself, and I missed a lot from others. Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit, Allison, about how that's changed for you since Wake the Talk Up?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that we explore and teach and figure out a lot of different tools in Wake the Talk Up around different choices of how to approach difficult conversations or difficult dynamics. And there was one point for me when I realized that I was, one of the things we talk about is sort of this 3-tier or 3-level thinking about, first level being how to speak to our own experience really eloquently, and the next one is about like really empathizing with the other person, and the third one is really about seeing the pattern that we get entrenched in. And I had this one moment where I really was able to see a pattern that I was entrenched with this other person. And the beauty of that was not just that there was an opportunity to strategize and like, how can we do this differently in the future, is that as soon as I realized that this was a pattern that I had an opportunity to change, all of a sudden I had more distance from it. All of a sudden I wasn't as upset. All of a sudden it was a little bit easier to like be empathetic and be curious, and it was just like a shift. It was a mental shift, and these
And the emotional shift too,
emotional shift.
sounds like.
Yeah, we always talk about like micro shifts are really where the big work happens.
Yeah. It's like this cascade, like we have this cognitive shift, it sounds like, of identifying that there's the tiers, right? So the cognitive shift was being aware of the third tier, and that kind of set off a domino effect where then there was an emotional shift.
The cognitive shift was just being aware that there was this resource out there of the 3 layers of thinking about something, or the 3 tiers, and that having that awareness built in other options for me and how to be around this dilemma, this dynamic.
And I'll just drop in here, since we talked about cognitive shifts, in Wake the Talk Up, we work with, of course, the thinking mind with cognition. That's how we learn these tools and practices. And we create choice habitually in our bodies by layering in other modalities, other ways of creating shift. We work with the psychodynamic landscape. We work with our physical bodies, because all of those aspects of our experience also need to be receptive to shift. Because when we're in those heated moments, right, that slow moving logical cognitive process sometimes isn't available. We're in a different state. We're in a reactive state. And speaking is just as much about, and listening is just as much about like our bodies, right, as it is about our minds. One area in my life where I have had very little choice in how I communicate is in challenging conversations, or conversations that repeat themselves over and over again. I'll give you an example. In my primary relationship, we have a debate, a fight, a challenging conversation about the dishes, often, like many households, I'm guessing. And here's kind of a little synopsis of what that exchange used to look like before Wake the Talk Up. You didn't do the dishes. It's not my job to do the dishes. Yes, it is. We never agreed to that. How could you possibly not remember that we agreed to that? And like, who knows what we said after that? But that's sort of the nature of the exchange, where I was reacting before even really receiving what the other person had said, just immediate defensive reactivity. And
if you want to learn more about how emotions can be contagious, everything's contagious, you can refer to our tip number 4. Go ahead.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. So that was what this conversation looked like every time. And I had enough awareness to almost go into the kitchen sometimes, like dreading, like, this is how the conversation's going to go, as if I had no choice in it. So fast forward to about a year later, after Alice and I developed all the tools and Wake the Talk Up. And one day we have pile of dishes in the sink, and we're back at that conversation. You didn't do the dishes. And here's where, for the first time, I had a choice. I had a choice to say, it's not my job to do the dishes. I didn't take that choice. I didn't choose that choice. Instead, I took a deep breath, and I dropped into my body, and I responded to what my partner had to say with sincere curiosity and empathy. And we made a plan from there about how to resolve this recurring dish pile up thing so that it would create more, we'd have more ease and flow and more cleanliness in our lives. So that is one tiny example of how having choice in difficult conversations actually gets us closer to more clear, connected, impactful communication, and having our needs met in ways that builds trust in our relationships as well.
To reiterate, this was our fifth way to make communication our greatest asset. And we have, if you like this and you want to learn more about amplifying your awareness to increase choice and of all the other 8 ways, you can download our free video called 8 Ways to Make Communication Your Greatest Asset. And you can also check out and if you sign up for that, then you also get a lot of other resources and tools that are also free. And you can learn about the community that we were building online with a lot of other people that are interested in developing their communication skills to have more clear, impactful, and connected communication. And you can also check out our intensive online course. Our next one is starting
May 6th.
May 6th. It's a 7-week format with meetings twice a week. And it's going to be really exciting. We're seeing some incredible results. Not that we're results oriented, but we are. And and we're just really, really pleased with how people are responding to this work. So we want to invite you to check it out as well.